It's Monday, and welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and this week's guest is the staff biologist at the Toledo Area Sanitation District in Northwest Ohio. He shares how a typical day looks for him, how he focuses on mosquito control in his career, how the field of biology offers a plethora of career opportunities, and much more. Whether you are interested in a STEM or science-focused career or are still exploring your options, I hope that what today's guest shares will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2009 Van Buren graduate Jacob Sublett with us. And he's going to be talking about his career as staff biologist at the Toledo Area Sanitation District. And I'm really interested, Jacob, to hear about this. I feel like this is a job that could be straight out of the TV show Dirty Jobs, but maybe it's not. I don't know. I guess that's what I'm here to find out. So thank you very much for joining us here today. And I'd like to start by just finding out, what does a typical day in your position look like and lead you to do?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. So I guess I should expand. My full title is staff biologist, GIS specialist, and assistant general manager. So I work for a really small local government organization, and I wear a lot of hats. And we are actually founded through an old law through the Ohio Revised Code. And so a lot of so it'll maybe come as a surprise to you. So I don't actually deal with sanitation. I do mosquito control. So I am a mosquito biologist. And so there's a bunch of different terms and ways that a sanitary district can go about doing sanitation work, and one of those is controlling biting arthropods. So I on a day-to-day basis, I do a lot of different things because of all those hats that I wear. So it's really dependent during the time of year, because if you work in mosquito control long enough, the first thing somebody will ask you is, what do you guys do in the wintertime? Because there's not mosquitoes in Northwest Ohio in the wintertime. I work a lot on the mapping side of my job in the wintertime. So we map all different known sources of where mosquitoes are known to lay their eggs and breed. And then we run pretty much all of our software or all of our operations based off of a mapping software that I'm kind of in charge of making sure it runs correctly. So I do a lot of enhancement work in the wintertime through that. And then when it's actually getting warm out and mosquito season is upon us, early in the spring, we go out and we collect larval samples and we identify those species. So most people just know that mosquitoes, there's one type of mosquito, and that's a bad mosquito because it bites you. But actually, there's about 30 different species of mosquito that we get out in I work in the Toledo area. So my job is to basically figure out what species is coming out of that water, and then inform all the other folks in the organization. So kind of be the technical support person about the biology of the mosquitoes. So some mosquitoes primarily are nuisance mosquitoes and they bite people, but they don't really spread disease. But other mosquitoes can carry disease. I don't know. An interesting fact about mosquitoes is that they are the deadliest animal in the world. They kill more people every year than any other animal in the world. So we take our public health approach to mosquitoes very, very seriously. And it all starts again with that biology, understanding what species we are finding in different waters. So that's my biology side. And then the general manager side is just so I deal with mosquitoes, and then I also deal with people. So so it's doing some like public outreach and public relations, and then a whole bunch of internal stuff as well. So
That's interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that you worked with mosquitoes.
yeah, yeah.
And so talking about that, I mean, what do you do to control mosquitoes? I mean, I know people spray, and is there more to it than that?
There's a ton to it. Yeah. So we follow what we call an integrated mosquito management plan, which is a taken from an agricultural term called integrated pest management. So instead of just spraying for mosquitoes, we try to understand the mosquito, like I said, understand the mosquito's biology and attack them in a holistic way. So we do reactive approaches, control, and proactive control. So education, actually, what I'm doing right now, right? So education, telling folks about mosquitoes and how they can protect themselves, how they can eliminate standing water around them. And then we do what we call breeding reduction. So, and it's in two main forms. So the first form is small breeding sources. So we in Toledo we run a scrap tire removal program. So there, I don't after we're done talking, go out and look for scrap tires. At least in Toledo, they're everywhere, and they always seem to multiply. So we'll actually go and collect those tires, bring them back to our facility, and recycle them. So those tires, all scrap tires, will hold water, and it's amazing how many mosquitoes can breed in those. So we do that. We do a above ground pool removal program. So we'll go if you have a scrap pool that you don't want to have anymore, we'll actually take it down for free. And then we do large scale source reduction. So this is primarily what our field crews do in the wintertime. So we do log jam and ditch removals, and then also do like bank stabilizations and stuff like that. So we kind of saw a cool way to incorporate like nutrient and sediment reduction into mosquito control. So I know a lot of, like everything, there's a lot more to it than stuff. But when I first started, I thought, a ditch is a ditch. It's easy. Yeah, there's a lot of actual, like physics that's involved in that. So we try to do best management practices through that as well.
Right.
So that's source reduction. The next thing that we do is larval control. So we do. I don't know if you're familiar about the donuts at like the big box stores, like Home Depot or something. The dunks. So they're like little dunks you can put into standing water. We use the same products to control mosquitoes in their larval stage. So little biology, mosquitoes do complete metamorphosis. So they're different life cycle stages, just like a butterfly: eggs, larva, pupal, and adult. So in the larval and pupal stages, they only stay in water. They have to be in water. And so it's a lot easier for us to control the larval stages because they're contained in water.
Right.
So we use a soil bacterium. Commonly, you could go up and dig this up out in your yard right now. And that is an extremely specific product that only basically targets mosquitoes or other flies. And then we do adult control as well, which is probably what people are most familiar with when we talk about mosquito control. But we use what's called ultra low volume. So very, very small amounts of insecticide. And we use it in a very targeted way where we try to protect our daytime pollinators. Mosquitoes are crepuscular, which means they come out at dawn and dusk. And so that's when we apply. And then we try to avoid times where the beneficial insects spread. So that's integrated mosquito management.
I was going to say, I have just learned more in 5 minutes about mosquitoes than I've ever learned in my life. That's awesome. Yeah. When do they start reproducing? I mean, is it March, April? Is it a certain temperature?
Yeah, so it's very seasonal dependent. So especially up here, we have what are called univolting species, which means that they're only one generation a year, and multivolting species, which means many generations a year. So those univolting species really are affected by the snowpack and the snow melt. So if we get a lot of water early in throughout winter, and there's a buildup of frozen water, and when that starts to melt, we'll actually see those species start emerging as early as February. So they're very cold tolerant larval species. And so that's actually, it's beneficial for us because it gives us a longer window of control. In the past several years, we haven't had a big snowpack. So we see these species starting emerging a little later. However, that they still will come out in adults in the same amount of numbers. So it gives us a little challenge there. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
really early, we've had technicians treating while in a snowstorm. So
Oh, wow. Huh.
yeah.
Would we ever eradicate all of them, or would that be impossible? And I assume there would be other side effects of that happening if that were to ever happen.
Right. So there's some interesting work about it's kind of like a philosophical question, right? Is there any such thing as like a truly all negative organism, right? Like doesn't provide any beneficial, and the close they came to is mosquitoes.
Oh.
So I don't think eradication probably not, and that's really as a biologist, that's really not our aim, right? Because there's some species of mosquitoes that don't even bite people. There's a species that we find up here that only primarily bites on leeches and worms, believe it or not. So that species, I think we could let go. We're probably
Right.
fine with that, right? And so they do provide a way for aquatic biomass to go to terrestrial biomass. So there are some benefits there. And as a public health professional, what we're mostly focused on looking at is reducing that disease transmission, right? So if you have nuisance issues, yeah, we can deal with that too. But these things can provide food for other organisms and stuff. So what we really want to focus on is making sure that they don't that population doesn't get high enough, or does the diseases in those populations don't get high enough where we have a spillover event into people.
Right, right. How many people like you are there in Northwest Ohio? I mean, you are it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Lucas County, at least
Okay.
I'm it, and then so Toledo's unique in the fact that we have our own dedicated mosquito control district. A lot of this stuff falls on the health departments.
Okay.
So there'll be somebody that's in there that deals with doing the mosquito surveillance, which is what I primarily do in the mosquito season. But they also might have to do other things like food inspections and stuff like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. When you were in high school, did you ever foresee yourself working with mosquitoes? What were your plans when you were graduating?
So yeah, I really did like science. So when I initially went to college, I was going to go to school to be a biology teacher. So no. And then I got all the way to, I think they were called methods.
Oh, yep.
So
Yep.
it's like the hardcore teaching. And I had worked and done a whole bunch of undergraduate research in a biology lab. And I was kind of sitting in a education class, and like I was hearing, no offense, I was hearing all the things teachers have to do, and kind of the struggles in which you guys go through on a day. And I was like, man, this sounds like not like fun at all. And I was thinking about, like, I love doing this research, and I love, so it was just an eye-opening moment where it was like, I think a passionate person would hear about all the stuff teachers have to do and say, yep, I love this. This is great. I'm passionate about this stuff. I was not. And I
Right.
knew that the biology was the thing that was driving me more than the teaching. So I switched my came in and switched my major, and luckily I had a lot of overlap because I just switched from being, science ed to biology.
Right.
So I was able to graduate on time and stuff. And then, went on to pursue a master's degree, doing same thing, doing biological research and stuff.
Right. So I see that after you earned your bachelor's degree, you worked for the Wood County Park District and you worked as a woodland specialist. Now, was that always just going to be a summer after graduation before you went back for your master's, or did you decide to do your master's after doing that summer?
Yeah, so I had started working for Wood County Parks when I was still an undergrad. I was an intern there, and then I was a seasonal, and then I got hired in full time. And I pretty much knew that I wanted to go to grad school when I made that switch.
Okay.
Just because you can get some pretty cool jobs with just a bachelor's in biology, but really going and getting a master's kind of can set you apart. So but that job I was so conflicted because that was a great job, and I really had a hard time going back to school after doing that. But yeah, I think for the most part, I always knew that I was going to go and get my master's.
Now, what did you do as a woodland specialist?
So actually, when I made that switch and I started that research lab that I was working at in undergrad, we actually focused on plant biology. So a lot of my classical training in biology was plant based. So I was using skills that I learned about just general plant anatomy and physiology, and growing all the woody species that the park would use to plant throughout their parks. So Wood County Park District is really cool for a county park. It's an amazing place. They have their own native nursery where they grow a whole bunch of native plants, and they sell them to the public. But they also use them in their parks too. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I got a lot of experience doing like nursery work and how to grow plants and stuff. So
Okay.
it was a great job.
Good. You mentioned that there are a lot of cool jobs out there for biologists. And again, my guess is 99% of students don't even ever stop to think I could be the person that, protects people from mosquitoes.
Yep.
What are some other things that maybe students don't immediately think about as potential careers as a biologist?
A lot of people go to school and they're like they're not really 100% sure on what to do. I think the fallback a lot of times people say is, well, get a business degree, right? I always tell, so I have seasonal students come in and work for me in my lab, and I always tell them, like, you're in a STEM field, and that's the best thing you could do. Because at least for me as a biologist, there's so much opportunity out there. Um, Basically, pick your favorite animal. You can have a job working with it, right? Like, or plants. So like, I have a colleague that worked in the lab with me and now works for the USDA and does some really cool research with soybean. Well, you get getting a bachelor's in biology, you get the foundation of how kind of biological life works, and you can apply that in so many different ways. So yeah. Agriculture is a huge thing that you can get into. Conservation is a huge thing that folks get into. There's fisheries out there, so if people like to fish, that's a huge avenue you could go down to. I mean, it's I know I'm biased because I'm a biologist, but it's really, I think, a pretty vast field that allows you to explore a lot of different opportunities.
Right. As you think about the characteristics of people who might excel as biologists, you talked about, I think, having that desire to research and learn. Are there any other qualities that a person might want to have heading into a career as a biologist?
Yeah, I think if you have an affinity towards those STEM fields, right? So if you if your favorite class is English, and you might not, if you're not struggles with math, I employ math on a daily basis. But then also, like, I'm not the most extroverted person. I'm pretty introverted, and I know it's a little bit of a stereotype, but like, if you want to be an introvert and work under a microscope and count mosquitoes all day, I got the perfect job for you, right? So, I guess if you're passionate about the environment, it would be a good thing too. There's great environmental programs out there, but biology, I think gives you that. Anybody that wants to be an environmental studies person, if you get a biology degree, a lot of times that they'll take a biology degree, but not necessarily the other way around, right?
Okay.
So
right.
If you're thinking environmental studies might be cool, but not 100% sure, I would go biology.
What would you say is the most unique or interesting experience you've been able to have as a biologist?
Every year I get to go on an annual conference, and I get to meet other folks in my field, and that's really fun. But also just like, I love understanding how things work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like, biology is great at that, and it gives you a lot of insight into how the natural world works, and it's really applicable in so many other disciplines of your life. So
right.
Not to be super philosophical, but
as you think back now on your career so far and what you've learned about life and careers, is there anything that you wish you had known when you were back in high school that you know today?
This is in high school and probably carries through in college, but so I was very fortunate because I had another graduate student in college teach me how to do computer programming. And so I learned a skill, and now I'm able to apply that skill in my everyday life. And so like, when you're going through high school, even though you might have some disciplines that you really like, my advice to anybody in high school, even into college, is try to identify courses that will teach you give you a skill that you can apply, when you get into the workforce, right? So whether it be being able to speak another language, or coding a, some language on the computer, those skills really can set you apart from somebody else, right? And they can make you a very invaluable person at your job.
Right. Yeah, that is great advice. And again, being well-rounded, always huge. And like you said, you obviously liked the math and science, so that ties right in with the coding. And so,
right.
Jacob, really, really interesting. I had no idea this is what this conversation was going to be about today, but I have learned a ton about mosquitoes. And yeah, I think being a biologist, a lot of opportunities for students. So thank you very much for sharing, and good luck as you continue your career journey.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story. And to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me. And as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.